Microsoft is making November 10th just a little bit better. Maybe a little bit better is underselling it just a bit. But on November 10th, Microsoft is going to be launching their next generation consoles, the Series S and X. We've all known that, but one thing we have not known is when Microsoft was going to be bringing EA's games into Game Pass. Microsoft announced this a couple weeks back, and here we are. Microsoft is finally revealing the date that it will arrive, and as you would expect, it is on November 10th, which means you can go grab your console, your brand new next generation console, and for $15, you can get access to about 160 titles. It might actually be more than that at this point, including some of the EA's best games and everything else from Microsoft that is in Game Pass. That is a tremendous value. And if you're already paying for Game Pass, you don't even have to pay additional money to play it on the next gen consoles. Because remember, when they launched Game Pass, they had some crazy deals where you could roll over Xbox Live and turn it into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for like $1, and then it would just convert your entire thing. It was a fantastic deal. So for many of us, myself included, you're not going to be paying anything to get access to those additional titles, which is just a tremendous value and is honestly something I hope that Microsoft really needs to be promoting, because if you think about the value that is there, which we all know is significant, and yes, you don't technically own the games, but how often do you go back and play a game many years after you bought it? Now, I know there's definitely going to be some people who are say, yes, I do, but a lot of the times you play a game for a while, you beat it, you move on to the next title, and that's just how it is. And Game Pass Ultimate, or Game Pass in general, works really, really well there. Now, for Game Pass on PC, it is not arriving on November 10th. It's going to be actually showing up in December for those PC gamers out there, or people who are playing across, cross platforms, all that good stuff. So November 10th, you're going to get EA Play games inside of Game Pass, and sometime in December, we don't know the exact date yet, you'll be able to play the similar titles on your PC, which is really big news. And then Microsoft is also bringing more Bethesda games to Game Pass. That is not a big surprise there. There's one thing you need to keep in mind. Microsoft, technically speaking, during an acquisition, now I don't believe I know this is true for public companies, and we'll see how this all shakes out. It doesn't really matter. You'll see where I'm going. Technically speaking, Microsoft, during an acquisition process, can't dictate what the company they're buying is going to do, because they don't own the company yet. They can't tell them exactly how to operate and everything else. That doesn't mean they're not going to maybe like, hey, let's go grab some beers and tell us what you're thinking, sort of thing. And Bethesda has to do what's in its best interest as of today until Microsoft fully owns the company, and then they have to switch gears. Because there's been Phil Spencer's done a lot of interviews lately, and he said he was a little bit surprised about how people keep saying that games are going to the PlayStation and everything else, and he thought that they were really clear that, hey, they want to bring things to Xbox and PC, but it doesn't really sound like they're bringing everything to Switch. He actually said he was a little annoyed that every time a game comes out, he goes, hey, is it going to be ported to Switch? Because Microsoft obviously brought Minecraft over there, and so now everything is like, hey, is it going to be over on Switch? Anyways, that's kind of the big news, is that EA Play is coming to Game Pass, and it's going to be the best value. So Microsoft now has the best value in terms of console with the Series S, the most powerful console, and then they have the best game streaming service out there with Game Pass. It's really shaping up to be sort of the wins in Microsoft's favor in terms of value and proposition. The question is, can Microsoft get its marketing chops together to make sure that this statement is really, really well known before the consoles launch? Because that is going to be the value, conversation is, hey, we already have a PlayStation. Let's just go buy another PlayStation. That is the crowd that they need to entice over the fence. I think people who have an Xbox already understand and are going to stay that way. And granted, a lot of people who have a PlayStation are going to be absolutely doing that too. And there might be people who are both. Many people have multiple consoles, Switches, and PlayStations and whatever, and that's all good and dandy. But Microsoft is trying to lure those people who are only going to buy one next generation console, and they want it to be an Xbox, but they're going to have to grab that from the market share of the PlayStation 5. That's how they're going to grow. So Microsoft really needs to be targeting and attacking that demographic if they want to grow the user base of their service. Other thing too, I need to do the math on this, but you can kind of start to figure out, hey, how do acquisitions make sense in Microsoft's world? Because I've got like a million teams like, who's Microsoft going to buy next? Are they going to buy this? Are they going to buy that? We've talked about Sega. That Sega has been coming up all the time. But if Microsoft can prove a path here, think about this for example. If Microsoft, let's say, has 15 million Game Pass Ultimate subscribers, and you can do the math and say that's $15 a month, and it tells you how much money they're going to generate each month. If they sit down at the table and say, how do we go from 15 million to 50 million per month? How do we get there? Well, they say, we buy Bethesda. That's how we do it. And then if that starts to work out and show that they're trending in the right direction, it's like, well, then how do we go from 50 to 100 million? Well, you go out and buy somebody else. And that's how you keep building up that service. Because if Microsoft can prove that by adding X, Y, and Z to Game Pass, subscriptions will grow by N, then that is a very easy formula to justify the acquisition of studios if they know that, hey, Z months after we buy Bethesda, the acquisition will have paid for itself through Game Pass subscription growth. That is a really interesting look at how they can begin to justify these mega acquisitions that Microsoft is going after with companies like Bethesda. So I can sit down and do the math here, and then we can start to try to justify it. But there are things that kind of make it juggled a little bit. Like, we know that there's 15 million Game Pass subscribers right now, but I'm personally not paying $15 a month for it. I've got 2.5 years left of it, so it's not quite perfect. But each additional, I think most of those deals are gone now. Sometimes you can get like the first month for $1 or something like that, but most of those mega deals are now gone, and so you can begin to justify it. It says, hey, if they had 10 million Game Pass subscribers with an acquisition, what does that do to the bottom line? That is how they can start to justify this stuff and really makes a big deal. And now it's going to be really interesting to see how this EA Play subscription, kind of boils out, because I'm sure Microsoft is obviously paying EA something for this. And what's the growth going to be? Are they going to see 5 million additional Game Pass subscribers? Are they going to see 1 million? What's the tipping point for when they start dumping more fuel onto the fire? They've obviously invested some serious dollars to get EA on board, to bring Bethesda in-house. I think that's going to be their sort of mega catalyst to see how do we make the numbers pop from 15 to 30, 15 to 100. That is the thing we need to be watching for, because Microsoft has even told us this is what's important. If you look at their financial statements, they're now reporting GamePass or game subscription service revenue rather than consoles sold. So this is the metric that Microsoft is paying attention to, and this is a metric you should be paying attention to, because as Game Pass grows, Microsoft will be more aggressive with their acquisitions.